All right, guys, we got another snow day. So, doing another recording. This one's going to be it'll probably be a little bit different. We got Aaron Sawyers joining us today. We've had him on here before, but today we're having him on here to talk about his operation, his family's operation that they've been working towards. I met Aaron probably in 2022 is when I really first met him. For some reason, I feel like I knew the name before I met him, but met him through Notes on the Plains. He has became a pretty good friend. We talk pretty often. We are always solving the problems of the world. Uh, so we'll see if we have anything left to talk about today that we're recording finally here. But yeah, so I'll let Aaron introduce himself, kind of give you where he's at type of thing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm Aaron Sawyers. I'm around just east of a little town called Protection, Kansas, which is only about 9 or 10 miles from the Oklahoma line. We're on that no man's land of where we are never considered Southwest Kansas or Central Kansas. So we're like Southwest Central. We're nowhere. Um, since I've moved home in 2010, we are in the 22 to 24-inch rainfall, but that has been from 11 inches up to, I think our highest was a little over 32 inches. So a lot of variety of weather that we've seen. So I would be the fourth generation here. Could have been the fifth, but my dad didn't want to farm, ranch, have anything to do with agriculture other than when we work calves or something, he likes to come out and help. Uh, he couldn't handle the stress, so versus the whole place being rented out to someone from not the family, I have made it a point to kind of take over my great grandpa's land as things progress. Um, Landlords get older and I guess I get more excited and I pick up some more land, and we're trying to make it where someday I don't have to work in town. I don't know that I'll ever get there, but man, it'd be nice just to run our own operation. Be stressful, but it'd be nice to just do what I wanted to do all day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you all do on your operation? What enterprises do you have going?
So our main enterprise would be cattle. So we have cow calf uh, operation, just a commercial cow. When I came home, we were talking before we started recording of how cold it was. We calved from January 1st to December 31st. We calved year round because that was my grandpa's idea of a savings account. If you had the bull out all the time, you'd always have, 4 or 5 calves here or there to sell, and then the majority of them calved in December. Um, and the house I live in now is grandpa's. That we'd get these storms and we'd end up with 3 or 4 calves in boxes in the living room of the house getting warmed up. That was not fun. I don't miss waking up at night doing that. So we've changed our cows, our main thing, and then we raise show pigs. I want to get more sheep. We were up to about 100. Now we're down to about 20, 25. Uh, I got to figure out the logistics of the fencing to get bigger without netting. And then we do layers, some meat birds, mainly for us now, bees, and then a growing garden that hopefully is at some point an enterprise versus a feed us and a hobby.
Uh, does your wife know that you want it to be an enterprise? Because I'm
Yes,
assuming
she
that'll be her
does.
enterprise. Okay.
Yeah, well, I've got 3 kids and they all
Right.
need something to do. My little girl last year was, she just turned 3. She had a flower enterprise, and our flowers, we didn't have a good planting and we kind of just quit. I got busy, and most of our flowers that she sold were from the road ditch that they didn't mow.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
sold tons and tons and tons of sunflowers. Little blonde-haired girl with pigtails at the farmer's market with little sunflower vases, sold out every single week. It's the most profitable enterprise we have.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it helps
Flowers.
with who the salesman is there.
Yeah, yeah. I
The
couldn't sell them, but she
yes,
can.
exactly. That's yeah, yeah. See, you just need a
Yeah.
cute little girl to be your salesman, and
Yep.
you'll have no problems, no problems.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so I'm taking it you don't calve in the winter anymore. When do you shoot the calf now?
So if I can keep the neighbor's bulls out of my cows and I can be home, I try to turn the bull out sometime the last week of July or first week of August, and that puts me at starting around May 1st. We use calving ease genetics, so they usually come a full 2 weeks earlier than what your intended breeding date is. So I think last year we had the first calf on April 26th. Um, it's still maybe a little chilly then, and I'm changing my mind more and more all the time. I moved that way because I wanted to calve on green grass. Um, the last 4 or 5 years, we have a decent fall, and then we get no rain in February, March, and April. And May comes around when we're calving and we have no green grass. So we're calving later, but no green grass, and we're out of our stockpile or out of our cover crops. Um, so it's you always have to adapt.
Yep.
But yeah, we thought the number one thing that we could control was when they were born, and how much we had, when we say we don't feed them, we do provide an environment for them to thrive where they're grazing. Like we're grazing standing Milo right now in the little skiff of snow and high of 8 degrees today. I'm not going to starve them. I want them body condition 5 or better year round. Uh, but if I can control when that calf's born, I can make sure that the cow's got the best nutrition when nature provides it versus me hauling it. And then
Yep.
they haul their own manure. I don't have to. So
Yep. So you're
pretty
saying
pretty pretty limited.
part of your problem right now is it's because your cool season grasses are greening up in April, but your warm season grasses haven't greened up basically by the time you're calving, and
Yeah.
you're probably about out of your cool.
Yeah, we're
You're in a little dead zone basically as far as waiting on the next thing to take
yeah,
off.
yeah, we don't quite I mean, we don't have a lot of cool seasons. We have a few. We're mainly warm seasons. And
Oh,
then in May, those things are little. If we've had a
yeah.
cool spring, like last year we had a dry, cool spring,
Yep.
they're just a little piddly sprig and the cows want
Hmm.
to chase them, but
Yeah.
it's just not what they need.
Right. Right.
But we've been over 80% breed up, um, which is fine with me. I know
Hmm.
some people won't like that number, but um, on basically a no hay and an absolute limited supplement program. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and it's always, I mean, right now open cows are worth a pretty penny.
Hmm.
It's all cash flow, and it's keeping your best ones, your most fertile ones in their program, and the ones that don't quite cut it, they're falling out, and you're keeping the rollover, and um, yeah.
Yeah, and we're getting more interest in grass-fed beef.
Hmm.
So some of those younger cows,
Yeah.
um, I whether you could sell a half or a whole, I think the main thing we could sell is hamburger. So there's another enterprise at some point for younger cows, but it is better for us now to take a cow to the sale barn and get a check versus sitting on inventory for 6 months just trying to sell meat.
Right. Right. Well, and like with that, with an old cow like that, I mean, if she's in good condition, I mean, and you're like you're saying hamburger. I mean, grass fed or not, hamburger's hamburger. I mean,
Yep.
there's always demand for hamburger, especially there in summertime. And yeah, you're no matter what, you're gonna make you should be able to make more money on hamburger because what's hamburger? I think hamburger in the store right now is something like $5, $6 a pound. I mean,
Right.
it ain't cheap. So
Right.
so what year did you come back to the farm?
I came back in May of 2010 to work on a ranch. I was working for a veterinarian uh, at Westmoreland. I lived in Manhattan, drove to Westmoreland, worked for a traveling embryo vet for a couple of years. Got to see lots and lots of, nice, fancy, high dollar cows, but lots and lots of ways to not make money for the commercial cattlemen. I mean, we worked for the premier seed stock guys, and seed stock
Mm-hmm.
guys are different than a commercial cattle guy. If you're selling $8,000 bulls at 18 months old, that's a lot different than when you're selling a 550-pound calf off the cow. Um, it's it's different. Everybody's context is different, resources are different, goals are different. Um, yeah, I was really privileged to have good mentors and working jobs of things that showed me what I didn't want to do on my own operation.
That's not typically the type of mentor that or that's not usually not where the word mentor is used.
Yep, and I mean some of them taught me more than people that I would have chose to go to and been like, I want to work under this person. Nope, go work for somebody who does something different and try to figure out why they do it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yep. And you got an idea, and you seen what, like you said, that you didn't want to do.
right.
So, um, did you go to college?
I did. I went to Hutch JUCO first for a couple years because it was cheap and basically paid for, and then I went on to K-State and finished because what do you do with a associate's degree? You go get a bachelor's degree, right?
Yep.
And then I almost went to grad school for repro phys and beef cattle, and the advisor said, "Well, if you go, I don't have an assistantship available this year, so you'll have to do it on your own." And that's like 17 grand or whatever to do that. And I'm like, what else can I do? And he said, go work for this embryo vet that I worked for. And he said, if you work for him for a year and you love it, come back and you'll be a better student for me. And if you don't love it, I'll save you a bunch of money. And I need to send him a Christmas card every year because I never went back.
Hmm.
I I did not enjoy school. It was pretty fairly easy for me, but I didn't like it. Didn't
So,
just
so was the intention always to come back, or what was your intention out of high school? I mean, you went to college, so
so even in college I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew
okay,
up. I thought
okay.
I was going to work with all these premier cows around the country and do fun things. Then I go work for some of these people and I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. I mean, they're calving today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Uh, and then yeah, I just figured out what I always thought I wanted to do didn't fit me. I had opportunities to go do most of what I thought I wanted to do and work for someone else. And then it just out of the blue, the a ranch that I had worked for a couple summers and done an internship with. One summer I got, I think it's 3 hours credit to do an internship working for them, do a presentation and this and that. They just called me out of the blue and said, whatever you're making up there, if you'll come home, I'll pay you that. That was the Lording Ranch here. I don't know if you've met Mark or Cole. Um, good operation, big operation. Their dad Arlie set that place up good. He's smart, and it's up to dad and son now to kind of keep it going. But they offered me to come home, and I gave 2 weeks notice and moved home. I was done being a traveling uh vet tech, eating fast food and sleeping in hotels. I was done with that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So you came
came
back.
home and yeah, worked for them for 4 years and kind of helped my grandpa a little bit. And then my mother said the extension agent job was coming open here in our county, and I needed to apply. And I said, "No, I'm not going to apply." She's like, "Yes, you are." So I filled out my application there in, I think, late winter of 20, or yeah, of 13. And then I got that job and started there in 14. And that's what kind of finally led through, a little clarity of where I was supposed to be. Is it seems like I'm always in some type of education organization to help people now since then, for what, 11 years. That that's where I met, Michael Thompson. I classify him a mentor. Gail Fuller, um, all those people that we know in the no-till circle. I met all of them in my extension job working for another nonprofit, helping them put on coffee shop meetings for producers.
Hmm.
So again, getting paid to do something that I wanted to do. So I get paid to learn most days.
Pretty tough gig.
Yeah. There are days like when you're at winter conference and nothing's going right or your food's off or something, it's not fun. But
Right.
the other 360 days of the year, it's
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, at least with those problems, you're still getting paid to deal with those problems. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
so you're working for extension. So what brought about deciding you wanted to ranch or farm, whatever you want to call yourself, if you're a rancher or you're a farmer, however you want to call yourself. What was the catalyst for that? What was the
Right. I got that job in February of 2014 for extension. I was just kind of helping grandpa and still helping that ranch on my days off. And my grandpa was diagnosed with cancer that year. He passed away in August of 2014. So grandma came to me and said, "I don't know what we need to do, but why don't you take over the day-to-day management and let's just have, an understanding uh that I own the place, I pay the bills, everything that you're going to go spend, you have to okay with me." Like, okay, so I had to provide her a budget. For the first time ever, the farm had a budget. So we start doing soil samples, pull soil samples, put on fertility, and I don't know if you remember the 2011 through 14 droughts. Uh, my first wheat crop was uh was zero. So I had like 0, 4, 4, 8 bushel, and then I think finally in 15 we cut 20 bushel wheat. Um, and then we poured fertilizer to it the next year and grew 47 bushel wheat, but didn't make any money. But having a grandma that really trusted, that I had the best interest of the land at heart was what sparked this interest. And then like at a meeting, it must have been 2015. I met Gail Fuller. I had to introduce him at a meeting, and I'd never met the man. Maybe it's 2014. I'd never met the man. I introduced him. I'm in the back of the room and listening to him. I'm like, here's somebody that thinks exactly like I do. And he had just gone through his battle with the crop insurance thing all the way to DC. Uh, and I was realizing if we farmed how I had been taught and how we had been doing, I was going to have to go get a banker. And I didn't want to get a banker. I wanted to keep my money. I was single in my mid 20s. I wanted to keep my money for fun things. And that was where the shift really, really, changed. And then we talked a little earlier about, going through an extension. I went through the farm bill, go through APHs and historical yields on farms all over the county, trying to figure out what programs farmers should sign up with. I'd had like 90 producers in my office, and in our county, historical yields don't necessarily mean money if your APH is in the mid to high 20s on wheat and mid 30s on Milo. History's trying to tell us something that maybe we shouldn't all grow grain out here. Um, Grazing. grazing worked better for us. So it just started to sort itself out that I was a grazer more than I was a crop man, and I hate mechanic work. Um, we had a swather and baler when I moved home, and I got to do all the swathing and baling. But working a town job, you're up at 3 to bale hay so you could get it while the dew's on and be done before you had to be to work at 8 o'clock. So it's just, yeah, it's pretty quick sort there of what I enjoyed doing and what I didn't.
Hmm. Hmm. Uh, so when you came back, or after your grandpa died, so there was already an existing cow herd, correct?
It was small, and that kind of that last year, it finally rained a little, and I said we need to buy some more cows. We got extra grass, and he said I'm too old. Why don't you buy a couple? So I did. I bought a couple that I ran with them, um, and they just said if you do all the work, you can run a couple cows, and we'll pay your rent. You got to do all the work on all of ours. So I had the day to day labor basically since about 2011,
Hmm.
but more of the leader role since 13, 14. But yeah,
So,
when I
so
came home, we had 5 cows because we had lost a big lease and we were in this bad drought.
right, right. So how did you so you figured out that grain farm you weren't cut out for grain farming, or grain farming wasn't cut out for you or your area, just not what you wanted to do. Um, and you wanted to do more of the grazing. Um, so what did you do to get enough livestock um to make that financially work and not do the grain farming?
Right. So we started small. Uh, when I first came back and we were running, Grandpa's saying I had 160 acres was all I had. And we didn't want to feed hay if we didn't have to. Um, we fed some. We had to wean out of that phase. That we had great big cows that we had to get smaller. But we started keeping all of our heifers every year. And then, I sourced some couple old cows from that lording ranch that I worked on because they were low maintenance, moderate cows. So we built from within because I was always scared to go borrow money. Right when I was in the building was that 13, 14 when we were selling steers for almost $1,800. We wean our calves and hold them through and sell them in the spring. And we had wheat pasture in those years, so those calves would weigh, 750 pounds to 800 coming off wheat, and they're worth 17, 1,800 bucks. Uh, so that meant bred cows were about like they are now, 2,500 plus for
Right.
plain Janes. I don't think it could have got grandma on board to go buy Corrientes and breed them up that way. We did use some half Corriente bulls once on our heifers, but we just we just built from within, and it's been slow. But so we built that 160 acres up to where we were maintaining a whopping 15 cows year round, and here and there we would maybe rent some Milo stocks or something if somebody had some handy. And we were to the point of we had grown the cow herd big enough that we are gonna have to sell most of the cows. You know, one year it hadn't rained, so our stocking plan or grazing plan was starting to call for shipping cows. And I have my great grandpa owns owns land around us. He died in 2008. Um, his kids are older, like I mean my grandma's siblings. So when he died, they kind of started taking over things, and I can't remember when great grandma died. Maybe it might have been 14. Um, we had the opportunity to lease more land. So we've, seems like the good Lord has provided more land as we needed it. And we've really not gone out and searched for more. And then, now we've had some people ask us, and I'm like, I don't know. how much bigger I can get working a town job and make my, if I'm on a bus tour with Tyrell and in the Dakotas, I don't know if I can make Macy go out and move 200 cows for a week and her
Oh
not be
hell,
mad at me.
oh hell, you got the three kids. Yeah, I mean, shoot, they're what, four?
Yeah,
What's the oldest now? 4 or 5?
five. He's five. He'll be six
Ah,
this fall. So
yeah, yeah,
he's starting to want to work a little. Um, yeah, so we just kind of built from within and then we grew it as we could. We didn't try to go out and get everything at once.
right. So you didn't have to bring in any else do any kind of custom grazing to stock
I,
stuff.
for two winters, I did graze some standing covers. One year we made money that paid the lease. The next year, I took in some really big cows. I had pretty marginal cover crops. We lost money. I donated my labor and we lost money. And I decided if we were going to lose money, might as well be our cows because I
Hmm.
could control the type and kind. I don't want to custom graze 1,400 pound hollowed out black cows that, they're like a Hummer. They're fun, but they take a lot to get there.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, so that's we just kind of we did use 2 years of custom grazing, and now we're to the point of we're about 50% stocked of what most of the county is.
Hmm.
Um, we probably need to bring in some custom grazing this year to help us cash flow some stuff.
Right, right. Well, but I mean, at the same time, because you're not overstocked, you're not having to feed anything. And so yeah, and with if, with cattle prices are the way they are, and you don't have any expenses in them per se, I mean, yeah, you're probably it's okay to be a little understocked. But you're saying if you get some moisture, basically, you're gonna need to do something essentially.
Yeah, uh, with a managed grazing system, we see, we can pulse stocking rates pretty high when
Hmm.
we have at least average rainfall, maybe a little below, depending on the year before. Um, the last 2 years we've grown a lot of grass, so we need to burn a little this winter or this spring to get some cedar trees and plum bushes uh under control in some places. But I'm not going to burn just to turn the ground black. I mean, it's for a goal, and we have pretty specific parameters of if we're tending towards drought, and I look at that UNL drought monitor, and they're showing it increasing, and I can go back and compare months and years. I'm pretty upfront that I just call off all burns for the year
Right.
if we get into March and things start deteriorating. So, and I want to have a ton of cover for wildlife. I mean, you talk about what I enjoy the most is the wildlife. I don't know how I get paid just to enjoy wildlife, but that's what I like. I like the life about it. The the system we have seems to promote life. That's what I like.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, like you said, I mean, you got drought insurance in front of you if we do end up with another potentially dry year, and then you won't be scrambling for feed. You're sitting pretty, and I mean, again, yeah, you're not stocked the best, but if your expenses aren't much as far as feed inputs and stuff, and if your biggest expense is land rent and stuff, I
Yeah,
mean,
like uh talking to like Logan Pribino of every operation has a strategic advantage, right? So currently ours is grass rent is still pretty good here
mm-hmm.
because we don't have a lot of production. So if you can run a cow on not very many acres of grass, and then you can figure out how to run them in the winter cheaply, like the grazing standing Milo. I won't say that it's cheap, but when you figure out the numbers of what you can do, okay, when you look at the market, you can make some money on the cow calf thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm smarter than anybody, tougher than anybody. Not you just every operation's different. You have to look at what you can do cheaper
Yeah.
or in the budget. And if guys' budget includes $1,800 calves every year to make money, they're in trouble. Um, when I first came back, our budget, we wanted to run a cow year round out the door for $300 or less. Calves are worth more than $300 most
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
They have in my lifetime, they've been worth that, but um, it's all about net dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and why don't you describe your land base a little bit? What percentage is farm ground? What percentage is uh, native
Yeah,
or
so
pasture?
we're about 90% grazing land, like native pasture or some reseeded stuff. Um, there in the soil bank in the 50s, they put some stuff back in, and then we just have just a small trying to think. I've got less than 200 acres of cropland, and it's all used to either winter cows on stockpile or Milo or planted to a cereal to kind of get our steers, going. It's all used for grazing.
Well, so you mentioned a couple times, and I definitely wanted to get to it because if anyone has followed Aaron on Twitter or sorry X or
Thanks.
Facebook, you've seen him doing this crazy thing with grazing Milo, grazing whole Milo. And so talk a little bit about because that'll also tie in with a mentor, how that came about and kind of what you're seeing as far as the just the day to day of the grazing the Milo and a little bit of the economics and yeah, what you're hoping to. I mean, what just call it the grazing the Milo project. What's
Yeah, so I went to Gail Fuller's field school one year. The first year I ever went, and I sat at a table uh, with on the front row. I always sit on the front row and listen and sit there and get to talking to this guy's from Missouri. His name's Harry Cope. And little did I know, that it had turned into a friendship, but start start up conversation. I know he's doing crazy things. And then I don't know, a year or so later, I see him in a publication, University of Missouri grazing standing Milo, wintering cows. Somewhere I have that article in a folder. And I'm trying to get to, we're running more cows. I'm trying to figure out what's the best bang for my buck, dollar for dollar. What do I get the most energy for in the winter? Because a lot of guys here are cake on grass. They feed cake on dry grass because our resource is grass. Well,
yep.
cake is expensive, and they're like in COVID, man, 20% cake was $500 a ton, freight on buyer, and you start looking at could they get the ingredients to make
Hmm.
some of these things? So I've tried to make a cow herd that runs on salt and scenery because usually I can get salt and whatever's in front of them. That she needs to succeed with that. But so we tried it. I can't remember the first year we tried it. I think this is the third year we've done it. One year in the middle was a drought. The first year was good, but trying to winter, and this is hard, trying to winter a cow on about an acre to 1.2, 1.3 acres of Milo uh, per winter. Start grazing in November after frost and then graze to about the 1st of March. And then we go to our stockpiled grass. Um, our stockpiled grass is all deferred the season before. So there's mature grass, there's some green in there, there's some cool seasons. It's pretty good quality coming off of Milo. But the thought process was if I had to haul them cake, it's an expense. I had to go buy a pickup, I had to have a caker, I had to do all this and that added expense that if I could put a standing plant out there that she could harvest herself, it'd be cheaper in the long run. Less iron, less labor. So we try to target somewhere 6 to 7 pounds of Milo a cow a day. Um,
Of grain.
so we of grain. Yep.
Yep. Of
Yep.
grain. Yep.
That way, That way she doesn't just load up, get acidotic on us. We don't, so far, we haven't foundered anything, haven't had any foot issues. And I know some people tell you that you have to roll that Milo to get any benefit out of it. Our cows look awesome right now. There's a few young cows. Uh, we should have weaned a little earlier, and we did wean earlier than we have been, but every year is different. Last year we didn't plant Milo. Uh, I don't own a tractor, and I couldn't get anybody to do custom. I ran a tractor and ran a drill to plant covers, but I didn't want to put Milo in with a 10-foot drill. So we rented Milo stocks, and we did the same thing. We just, there's a bunch of grain that goes down anymore. We push these yields. These hybrids get big old heads on them, and they go down if they don't get
Hmm.
them harvested right away. So I love grazing Milo. A little bit, give me a four-wheeler and some poly wire, and let's roll.
So on the grazing Milo, you're doing you don't feel like because I'm assuming you were doing the same program on the Milo stocks. You weren't doing any kind of protein supplement. So
So if
does it take more acres
yeah,
on the Milo stalks versus a whole plant Milo?
it does. Yep. Yep.
So that's where the benefits coming in is because yes, you got some costs of putting in a cash grain crop. I mean it's a cash grain crop. Um, but you're not harvesting it with a combine, you're harvesting it with a cowbine, as you've been saying. Um,
Yep.
and it doesn't take near as many acres for you to get a cow through the winter because you're giving her such a high nutrition plant, basically.
Right. And I know we're deficient protein. I do know that. But we feed protein to a ruminant animal to make energy, right?
Hmm. Right.
And anytime you feed something else to feed to make something, there's an inefficiency. So I'm like, if I short her on protein and give her enough energy, she's probably going to do okay, right?
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
if you eat carbs, you're going to do okay if you have minimal meat, right?
Hmm.
Or
Yep.
minimal protein. You may not
Yeah.
be totally happy, and that's where every year's different. Every field is different. We we are really big about observing. So the good Lord gave us our senses for a reason. You got your eyeballs to look, your ears to hear, and your nose to smell, and you should use all three of those things every day you're in your cow herd, or I do. Um, I can smell the cows if we gave too much Milo the day before. They smell acidotic. Or you look at manure and you see bubbles in the manure. So okay, too much grain. Let's back it up a little. Look at their manure. If it starts stacking up, okay, yeah, we're short on protein. But if she's full and content, we're okay. If that rumen is just a little bit in and she's not quite happy, like you can kind of tell her maybe her belly hurts, we're going to go in and we're going to supplement 20% cube at 5 pounds a head 1 day a week, which most guys are feeding 2 pounds a day or 4 pounds a day. Um, and that seems like it's just enough to feed those microbes that levels that cow out.
Hmm.
Um, we're feeding cubes right now because it's a high of 8 degrees. So the
Right.
girls got 4 pounds of cake this morning and they'll get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I want to be as, you know, humane as I can be. I want them to have a really good home, but I want them to be able to do it without me feeding it to them. It's my
Yeah.
my job to set up their environment to be successful. That Milo thing, you think about. I talked to Nick and about wanting a taller variety of Milo. I don't care if it goes down. I
Hmm.
want more ice and more snow protection and more residue out there than some of
Hmm.
these commercial available hybrids we get now are getting shorter because they're worrying about lodging. Well,
Hmm.
cow pick it up off the ground way better than John Deere, right?
Right. Right. Well, and because what did you figure your best Milo? What did you figure it was probably yielding this year? Maybe 40 bushels an acre out there, probably something like that,
Yeah, I bet the farm average would be uh around 40.
right? And
Yep.
so
If we were to cut it.
you're looking at a very different situation than if you were grazing 120 bushel standing Milo.
Yeah, Harry Cope builds his off 150 bushel Milo.
Wow, and he gets along
And
doing it,
he'll tell you if you have 150 bushel Milo, you get 400 cow days per acre.
right?
And he's been
Right.
doing it. And he had an equation of to go. I called him. He had an equation to go measure so many feet of a row, cut it off, let it dry, and weigh it, and that'd give you your yield. I
Right.
never got to that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just, I just, I've seen enough fields, growing up cutting it and being an extension agent, and
Well,
be like, okay, that's 40
yeah.
bushel Milo, or
It's just like it's what Jim Gersh always says. You've trained your eye. Uh, I mean, and it's with anything as when it comes to grazing, as you start to figure out. So how many feet are you probably giving them at a time? Because I'm assuming you're not moving that wire that many feet to be getting the kind of yields that you're
so I
getting as
used
far as
I used
grazing
to
days.
step off. I was like, I used to step off every time I put a post, and I do 20 or 30 steps. Now I just drive
Mhm.
along on the four wheeler. I'm like, yep, I'm put one here. And
Yep.
then I
Yep.
usually move one post. So 20 foot, they might move 20 foot is all they move. Um,
And
but
how many days?
it might be a quarter mile long. My one right, we're in the 1 to 2 day range.
Okay.
Um, I, on grain, it's kind of like a feed yard. You
Yeah.
don't feed once a week.
Yep.
Um, so we try to move every day or every other day. Today they'll probably move twice. It's cold.
Yeah.
Um, I had messed with it a little, and I'm glad Jacob Miller reminded me from up there at Culbertson that move them late in the evenings, and you think about these cold evenings, that rumination occurs overnight when it's the
Right.
coldest.
Yep.
So that cow's not sitting there burning calories, burning body condition. So I took my goal was to graze to March 1st. Looking ahead of me with what the wildlife has taken since we're still grazing, I'd probably be a week short, which
Yeah.
if I'm within 7 days and I planned this last June when we planted, that's not too bad. That for
Yeah. Yeah.
agriculture, pretty close. And 50% of our acres, I basically equivalated to a less than 10 bushel Milo out there. It
Right.
That field in the rains and when it flowered didn't make anything.
Right.
Um,
Right. Well, and
the,
you were talking about protein. I mean, the last year that we had sheep, um, we were on Milo stalks with oat bales as supplement and not good quality oat, like pretty much dang near oat straw with oats in them for grain and no protein. We fed protein. I fed some alfalfa pellets when it was really, really cold like this for about 5 days, maybe something like that. About the day before the cold snap, and then a couple days during the cold snap. Um, I don't know. I'm not an animal nutritionist. I sometimes think that we need to we need to select our animals to not need so damn much protein during the wintertime.
and like I said, I worked for Extension for a little over 4 years, and I learned a lot. I got to go see, I went through two farm bills, two wildfires. I mean, I learned a lot. It's what really set me up for the next, for no-till job, that we have become too efficient on what we worry about. We have to
Hmm.
be efficient. Like we worry about numbers and we don't worry about does it work, right? Um, so you can say, yeah, you can't do that. We're doing that. Every year's different.
Hmm.
I I know there are people that feed nothing and don't supplement and they've got thin cows. And nobody likes to see that. Nobody likes to see a body condition 3 cow out there. licking dirt. Uh, we see it driving around. So the other thing is the lower we're not meeting their protein requirements. We're getting close on energy. That the calving date move was really big
Hmm.
too. That so we can run more cows on grass in the summer and then they eat less in the winter, right? Because they're not lactating.
Yep.
Their their consumption's to, 2.5, 3% of their body weight. And we can limit feed them with the Milo a little. Um, the cows actually, they're watering in my garden, and I've got some 2-year-old grass bales. I just been putting the grass bales in the garden. That way, cows deposit almost all their nutrients back at water, right? They go back, get a drink and
Use the
pee and poop.
bathroom.
That Yeah, I'm like, might as well have them haul all of that back to my garden. And they need a place to lay when it's cold because I our bulls are still with the cows, and if we don't provide anything, we're going to end up with frozen testicles. That's I mean, we're gonna so give them a place to lay, but I'm like, okay, might as well have a bunch of that nutrition applied to where I'm going to grow my food at and have a
Hmm.
mulch um and the cows have it's weird. Provided them plain grass bales and their manure is better. Like it's looser than it was just with the grain and they'll poop out solid Milo berries. I
Hmm.
mean, this whole time. So you see when the quail and the pheasants and all that, the turkeys, they like it. They have a warm breakfast every day after we move cows.
Well, but you say that it by giving them the grass hay, so that's not going to be protein. I mean, but it's improved their
Yeah.
manure. I can remember this still sticks in my head. Jim Gerst talks about, during spring green up, you get your cows real loose, and he'd ask the audience, well, so what should you give them? Oh, you need to give them some straw or some low quality hay. He's like, no, you need to go give them whole corn. So you got too much protein and not enough energy.
Yep.
So what's the grass doing? I mean, the grass is obviously it's obviously balancing um, the microbiome so that they can probably better utilize that Milo and
I'm guessing it's probably slowing it down a little, so they're using
hmm
it a little more efficient than the pass through because it is. I mean, you're asking by the time a cow eats a berry to she sends it out the back end, it's not that long. So
yeah,
probably
yeah,
just slowing things down.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I remember doing those nutrition squares in nutrition class, trying to figure out how many pounds of this percentage protein I needed to feed this size of cow to do this. And I'm just like, use your dang eyeballs. Like
hmm
I, I don't
Well,
know.
we weren't feeding protein 100 years ago.
I will be 40. I was like, I'll be 40 this summer. And I remember when it was cold like this, I'd have been under 10. And I'd go out and they'd put the truck in, compound low, and I'd steer, and dad and grandpa would throw straw bales off of the back. We fed straw before a storm. That way their belly was full.
Yeah,
And the cows would run and eat every piece of straw in the pasture. Now, looking back, we overstocked, we overgrazed. I mean, they were hungry.
yeah,
We
yeah.
kept, but it's like, so we fed straw, and now when I was in extension, you'd have guys that would feed half a bale of cow per year. And then I had one guy that he planned on 4 every year
Yep.
per cow. And when we get in those droughts where we don't make anything and you're buying $250 a ton alfalfa, it hurts. So I've always been at the low end, trying to learn to be better, to not be too cheap. But there are times that I could supplement a little more and I could do better.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a balance.
Yeah.
So try to be low risk and high reward. That's what I want the cow market to be. And most people, it's high risk and high reward, right?
Well, well, right now it's high reward.
Unless, yeah,
Most of the time it isn't high
unless,
reward.
no, unless you're buying them. Um,
Yeah.
and we know, man, high prices cure high prices, right? Beef's going to go down, at least to the live animal. It'll be the the meat doesn't always follow the live animal right away. So
Well, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think a lot of that is going to depend on how many numbers get rebuilt.
yeah,
Because
and
if cattle got to come from somewhere, um, and the numbers aren't there, and so if everyone wants them, according to the law of supply and demand, supply is at a historic low. Um, Guys want to start rebuilding. Uh, they're
oh,
gonna have to.
Macy just stepped. Show me, Tyrell. I am calving today in the garden. Yeah, so just so everybody can see, we didn't get the bull pulled, and there's a baby in the garden. And it's feels like -1 outside.
Well, I didn't know you could plant a calf and have a calf grow out of the garden.
Yeah, magic.
Yeah. Uh, is that a root plant or a lettuce or?
Yeah, I don't not I think it's the grazing standing Milo, all those seeds we put down.
There you go. There you go. There you go. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting because yeah, I mean, if historical norms hold true, yes, price of cattle should come down, but at the same time,
Well,
2012, 2014,
right, and you
but
look at uh, the screwworm thing, right, south of us, they've
mhm,
stopped influx of southern cattle, and then the economy's still not good. Like it is supply and demand. Well, our supply is lower than it's been. The cow herd's maybe the smallest it's ever been,
mhm,
but how long can people afford to buy it?
right,
And
right,
it, before it becomes a luxury item.
right,
Uh,
right.
it's still really nutrient dense, really good for you. Um, and people are going to eat a lot more hamburger. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, I mean, the price of eggs, well, surely the avian influenza is affecting the broilers too. I mean, so chicken isn't going to be cheap. Uh, I don't know. I mean,
and yeah, and then you look at the African swine fever and the hog thing. If we get that in the U.S. Or when we get that in the U.S., that we we have some challenges ahead of
yeah,
us.
that because you look at like 2014, 2015, prices were peaking partly because coming out of droughts and guys wanted heifers to rebuild and replace. Um, we've had these high prices all through a drought, all through a dry spell, in some part of at least in the high plains of having drought, from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. I understand that's not all of cattle country anymore by any means, but we've kept those prices and we're not out of the drought. So
Right.
that's why I struggle with price of cattle is going to come down. Not if I mean what are heifers worth right now? 25 to $3,000, 2,500 to
I think
$3,000.
I think I saw Logan and TJ there at Wineglass had posted on X a week or so ago that like 2,400 up to over 3,500
Right.
depended on size and when they were bred and uh but when you go study the margins, so cattle
Hmm.
are all-time highs,
Oh yeah.
the margin is probably all-time low, and
Yep.
that's where I'm always like, okay, I had we talked earlier about mentors that taught me things I didn't want to do. I've had some even better mentors that taught me limit your risk, dummy. Like it's just stuff. Don't borrow money on things that can die.
Yeah.
So we run a low cost deal with hopefully high reward. We are figuring on our genetics I can't go any smaller. I mean, we've made really good grass cattle, but my steer buyer, he doesn't want my small frame steers. Um, and if he quits buying them, he's an older guy.
Yep.
They go to the sale barn, and then they're going to get knocked because they're smaller.
Well,
Um,
yep. Because the feedlots right now, they're instead of feeding cattle to 1,400, they're feeding them to 1,600 to make up for short numbers.
yeah, and mine are going to be done at by 1250 in the feed
Yes.
yard.
Yep.
And then if they feed them to that, they're going to be yield grade 5 and dark cutter and yep. So I had this talk in Burlington, Colorado, last year about, low input genetics or regenerative genetics, whatever you want to call, unless you have a direct market for them, they are docked at the sale barn because we're
Right.
too little.
Yep.
Um, and it's like, okay, so I have to have balance. So we changed up this year and we don't do it very often. We AI'd some cows to try to raise our own bulls out of some higher growth stuff. Not crazy, but I'm trying to look ahead 5 years of where we need to be before we're there. Um,
Mhm.
and I won't know if I'm right till I get there, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, like you
trying
said,
to,
it's one of those deals. What's good for the Packers is not good for the cow calf guy, and what's good for the cow calf guy isn't necessarily good for the Packers. Um, so yeah, I don't. How do you balance it? Because that's the really frustrating thing is your small frame calves. Yeah, they're going to finish at 1250, and they're going to get there faster than your larger frame stuff. They're going to be really efficient getting to that point, but then when they're done, they're done. And then you're going to be feeding them for an extra 90 days, 120 days, and they're still not going to gain what they need to gain for the Packers to want them. And so any of that profit that you made on the quick gain on the short end, you lose because there's just no feed conversion after that.
yeah.
So,
And where I say we're getting too small, like we ate a heifer, a 2-year-old heifer that lost her calf uh, in June. We made her a butcher date in August. She weighed like 925 pounds. She's fat. Like
mhm.
our cows are getting too small for where we're at unless we really want to go to a direct market. And then it runs into a whole nother enterprise of how long can you set on inventory
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
before you get money? Cash flow's good. So we'll get there someday, but we're not there yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you said, it's just, yeah, it's a balancing, and it's just really, what do you do? I mean, I don't know. I understand the Packers if they can get the same amount of beef and run half as many head through a facility. I understand it, but at the same time, I mean, pounds of beef is pounds of beef. I mean, so I don't know. Yeah, that'll be. I don't know what's going to come of that. That's a little
Right. So
above our pay grade. So
on the grazing standing Milo, we mentioned Harry Cope. He's messing with putting in some perennials, switchgrass and some clovers, moving Milo over 20 inches every year, taking that switchgrass and clover for hay one time, and then going in and planting Milo in there. Uh, so I really need to get over and see what he's doing. That really intrigues me. And then I want to graze my hogs in that. With the grain and grass and clover. Like you look back in the old days, they used to graze hogs on like
hmm
alfalfa or clovers and finish them out there. Um,
yep.
but I'm trying to figure out more ways to graze and utilize what we can grow here versus having to haul everything in.
hmm
Uh, when we were in COVID, I had a pretty good, I'd call it a blog. I wrote several articles for a local newspaper of like, so if you can't get something, what is your plan? Right? Like if you can't get hay next year, or your cow's just going to die, like what are you going to do? The only thing you can control is you and how you react to it. So trying to build an operation that runs on what we produce. I have no short so far. I have no shortage of sunshine. um, Rain, it either rains or it doesn't. I try not to get discouraged. We talked a little earlier about having not enough cows. Well, I do know when I go out on my grazing plan right now that I can graze from wherever I'm at today to a year from now. I've got that ahead of me, um, and a plan. And then if that gives you quite a bit of time to adjust if you've got a year. It's not like if it doesn't rain next week, we're selling cows and we're in
Right.
trouble.
Right.
Uh, so had some good mentors that really worked on drought plan and being aware, you know, being honest with myself on forage that's there versus hoping grass is there.
Where did
Now,
you do your 'cause I'm assuming, did you take a school go to a school or a class for your planned grazing, your holistic grazing?
so that lording ranch that I worked on, they had been rotationally grazing for about 15 years when I went there. So I got a pretty uh pretty brief and good good experience there. Um, Worked for him for a couple summers. That internship worked for him for about 4 years when I moved home. That I got the big picture of rotational grazing and what it took. Um, After I left, they started doing polywire on cropland. It was an expense thing. They wanted to winter cows cheap, and we had been to, Gail Fuller's coffee shop, drawing blanks. Alan Nation had been there. I don't know if you know him.
I
Writes
remember the
articles for
name.
Stuck
Yeah.
Best Farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Oklahoma. And then Jim Garish. I heard him speak for the first time here, just 10 miles east of us, that about saying that there was enough protein on your property in green grass to get cow through the winter. You just had to control how much she got. Because if not, she went out and ate the best thing first, and then the next thing, and then she stood at the gate and bawled at you all winter. And then we're conditioned when cows aren't happy that we need to provide them something. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get some poly wire and I'm gonna work on this. So we strip grazed our pasture in the winter, uh, in one of our bottoms, kind of chasing green. So from December through calving in April, uh, we strip grazed and I loved it. Like it was the first year that we didn't haul a bunch of stuff to them, and they looked good. Um, you know, I was talking about grandma, and then so I've got my dad's got siblings, and they didn't like how I was running grandpa's cows with grandma or this and that. And I'm not trying to run anybody down, but they were talking to grandma that we need to do something different. And she stood up and said, "This is the first time the farm's ever been profitable. So we're going to keep doing it. You guys have your own cows. You can do it how you want to. We're going to do it like Aaron wants to." Um, I brought, she's 85 now, but I brought her out. It's probably 2014. I brought her out to, we had the third grade from the local high school out, or local grade school out for a soils lab. And we did the slate test with third graders and the teachers, you grandma's there, and she's like, "I don't understand all this, but keep doing it. Just speak, just the difference in 2 years of no-till and cover crops."
hmm hmm
So that was the other one was, like people like, "You can't graze that Milo. You've got to cut that Milo." And I'm like, did you pay anything for this?" Like,
hmm
no, like, okay, then zip it.
Well,
Like,
well, and that's because it isn't that you couldn't be doing the same thing with the grass during the winter time. It's just that it takes more of that grass to carry a cow through the winter, correct? So that's where the
right.
benefit of.
And like right here, so machinery is a huge overhead, right?
Hmm
If you have to drive a vehicle every day, start it up, wear and tear, tires, fuel, and then feed them, it's a you don't recognize that cost to your operation. That my farm ground, most farm ground is located pretty dang close to the road or to the house.
Right.
My labor is significantly less. Like I didn't think my old four-wheeler was going to start this morning. I had to, I should have just walked, but I drove out 200 yards and rolled up 10 foot of a poly wire, set it on the ground, and I'm done unless I go move one more.
Right.
I built all my paddocks Monday, Monday evening right before dark. So if I'm right on my math, I won't have to build fence till Thursday. And I think we're above freezing on Thursday.
Right. Right. So there's some other not hidden costs, unseen costs that are you're gaining by doing the Milo and just ease on you, quality of life. And
That's, people talk about regenerative agriculture and what it does and this and that. And the biggest thing I saw was like when I met Gail and Michael Thompson and Jimmy, all those is the quality of life is significantly better. Uh, and my stress level is less. Like, I mean, I sit down and I make a plan on paper. I'm getting ready to start, crop budgets and cow budgets for the year. Because if you don't sit down and write it down, you're going to spend too much, and then you're going to get to the end of the year and be like, wow, or the end of the month when your co-op bill comes and you're like,
hmm
ouch. Um, so yeah, the regenerative agriculture, the quality of life and regenerating me has been the biggest. I would have flamed out and been done by now if we had did status quo. I'd have been done with it.
hmm hmm Well, and you see some guys do that in this space too because they try to do too much, or um, they think that you have to move them. You got to move every cow every single day of the year, um, and you don't have to necessarily. You just got to put it into your, as you say, you got to have a plan for it, manage for it, and
Yeah, so we don't move them every day all year round.
right.
We move with purpose.
Yep.
When I first started in this, we just moved every day because, the big wigs were saying you move every day, you get more density, you get more impact, you get better. And I'm like, we're literally moving cows to move cows.
hmm
Um, and if they're here by the house and I want to accomplish a goal, I might move them 8 times in a day, but I have total labor of 20 minutes because they're right here.
hmm
I'm not driving from town to the farm to move cows. And when they're, I think our furthest place is 3 miles north of the house. I don't even go up there every day. They're on bigger moves. Um, I tried calving our heifers with the cows. One year it worked awesome. So I thought I'd do it again the next year, moved them 3 miles north of the house. And it was a wreck. Uh, we pulled half of them. So then, last year we brought them home and we we had fun last year too. So uh, brings another point of can I really afford to raise my own replacements or should I just be buying cows?
hmm
Like it's always balance.
Yeah.
That's where I'd love to figure out how to get the sheep bonded to the cows. So in certain places I could run a ewe per cow on purpose. Um, and double the density, change it up a little. They select different energy levels, different plants. Um, I'd like to use cows as a guard dog with the sheep without a dog, but I'm not home enough currently.
hmm
We when we were at 100 ewes, cows were in extension, and I went to a meeting in Manhattan. And I think I'd just walked in and set my bag down, and my phone rang, and as a neighbor, so I answer, and I had about 75 ewes in his alfalfa field. I hadn't, oh, I mean, I had to get the wife, get the four-wheeler, and she does not like the sheep. Uh, so we downsize the sheep because I do see their value. I like them. Um, we're just not there yet on the logistics. I got to figure that one out.
Right. Yep. Oh yeah, that's the joy or the trouble or the difficulty with sheep is like you said, the fencing. That's the fencing and the security. That's the biggest constraints on them. Otherwise, if it wasn't for those two things, they'd blow cattle out of the water any day of the week. Any day of the week.
There, there's a a Mennonite guy that's, I think he's probably a little younger than me, south of Greensburg, and he's right along Highway 183. And he's had four high tensile wires that are electrified around his perimeter, just grazing farm ground. I mean, right against a super busy highway. And then he grazes internally with one poly wire, about 18 inches off the ground. And he said, if as long as you don't let them get hungry, they don't get out. Uh, he rented some ground across the road, went by the other day, he's grazing stalks with two poly wires against the highway.
Hmm.
And the sheep are out there work. So his sheep do not get out. I probably ought to go buy sheep from him.
Yep, yep.
I, I sold him a ram, so he's got, a base of our herd, but uh he was a guy that you talked about cattle and sheep. Like he said, I got 160 acres and I can't run cows. What can I run? I'm like, well, have you ever thought about sheep? So there were two guys there that when I was an extension that I encouraged, check out sheep, and I think they're both around 100 ewes now.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's neat.
I think you're right that yeah, the thing to do is just go buy sheep from someone who is using just a few strands of wire, and then breed them up to what you want from there. But at least you got the trained part down.
Right? And I think he's got donkeys. We tried a dog. I think the dog killed more sheep than the coyotes ever did. Um, and I don't know that I want a donkey. Right now, we're just behind netting, and we've been okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Other than every once in a while in the spring, the coyotes will get the sheep going and run them through, and then you could tell that you're missing two, that they got eight. You never see
yeah,
them, but
yeah. You paid your coyote tax.
yeah, that's what. Uh, I laugh about that. I had a trapper come in a couple years ago and asked to trap. I'm like, no, thanks. So why? I was like, because those are my guard dogs you're catching. He's like, okay, elaborate. And I said, well, when I was at a meeting, I heard Walt Davis from Texas, uh, really good operator, talk about coyotes that aren't killing are the best unpaid employees on your place because they're highly territorial and they keep out ones that maybe would kill. So if you shoot one that's not killing, you don't know who's going to replace him. So right then I quit trying to kill every single coyote I ever saw.
Hmm.
And it's what it is. They live here too.
Yep, yep, yep. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think you've talked a little bit about what doesn't work. You've talked about the Milo that does work. Um, mentioned quite a few mentors. Um, hmm. What new things are you looking to try this year or in the future would you like to try? I know you mentioned a couple things potentially, but
Right. So last year, I met Jorge the fall before. Um, Listened to him at a no-till field day and thought, okay, we're already keeping bees, but we're not doing anything with them. We have bees. They're, we have them because we want to stack enterprises, and when we stack enterprises, we think it's always better. Well, it just adds too much work.
yep.
Man, we could get a lot of money wrapped up in beehives, get no honey, consistently be disappointed when we lose hives after winter or in the spring, whenever. Um, Jorge challenged us after winter conference last year, like, I'm going to come to your house and we're going to try my beehives and we're going to change things. And I like his design. But we got honey last year for the first time. Um, and it's not, we need to plant more blooms and more flowers. But our neighbors, we're surrounded by a bunch of alfalfa fields that seems like it's been raining about the time they want to lay it down, right when it's about bloomed. And then you get 2 weeks extra. And I'm like, okay, if I can run bees on my place and they go over to my neighbors and forage and graze, right?
Hmm.
I can run thousands of bees or millions of bees on the neighbor's property and I don't have to pay rent, right?
Yep. Yep.
But I have to have bees that can do it. So I hope the bee thing I hope it's good. I hope that is a growth thing. And then we talked a little earlier, like I plant a big garden every year. Um, we do market some of that with some, usually we have pork maybe available. We take to a farmer's market. Um, we do continuously have demand for good produce in our area from people that are health conscious that I don't want to knock anything, but we don't use any herbicides or any pesticides in our garden because it's a personal choice. Like, and there's more and more people that want that choice and they want a connection with the farmer. So we're bale grazing in the garden to hopefully, uh, put down a mat to keep the grass and the weeds out and add fertility. And hopefully it makes the garden better.
Do you have fear? Do you have
What?
fear of the grass bale adding grass to your garden?
I don't because it is little blue stem, big blue stem. I mean, it's a perennial. Um, and that's where I'm like, I get more and more excited when I see perennial plants that I don't have to plant every year. Um, like if I had my way, I just plant all of our crop ground back to grass and be done with it. But our soils aren't there yet. The bees in the garden uh, are kind of our growth thing. I thought it was going to be chickens. Um, it's too much labor
Yeah,
currently, and we're too far away from a processing facility to get them inspected, processed. That I have charged $35 a bird or something to make money, um, and drive a pickup and trailer down the road. It's not worth it.
yeah, yeah, yep, nope. And like you said, labor. Uh, it's labor intensive. Um, you got to be there every day. Uh, yeah, it's. I commend the people who do it as a business model because
If
it's
you know, if I was close to like McPherson, where Crable's will butcher them, and you didn't have the mileage, it wouldn't be bad. But it's 3 hours one way,
yeah,
so you'd have to take birds up, drop them off, they'd process them, and then you'd leave and have to go back and get. So I mean, you've got several trips that
yeah,
I mean, it's just it doesn't work. So we'll sell a few to friends here or there. For a while, we'd butcher 100 and sell 100, but you don't. It's a lot of work.
yeah, yep, yep.
Yep.
We can kind of close with this if you want. What do you think the future of ag is?
My thoughts or what I want. Which one do you want?
Well, we'll
Okay, so
give
I'll tell you my
give the positive and the negative.
yeah, my thoughts are we're going to continually perpetuate what we've been doing, which is get bigger or get out. The little guys like me are going to lose out. Um, as in our little area here, uh, families that aren't attached anymore to the land that they've maybe owned it for a generation or two since dad or grandpa has died, they're going to cash in, um, sell the land to an absentee landowner in our area. It's deer hunters, and then that land's going to come out of production. So we're going to combat some issues there, and then the young guys that want to be here and raise a family and put kids in our schools, that gets less all the time. We're struggling with that right now. Um, it seems like a lot of the policy or programs, whatever you want to call them, makes that worse, right? Like it promotes that.
Hmm.
So that's my thoughts. My hope is we change some of those things and we get more young people back on the land, um, to more manageable sizes. You know, you've heard Gail Fuller's story of 2,500-acre corn and soybean farmer to now he's changed a lot, 160-acre food farmer. That's not
Hmm.
for everybody, but
Right.
Um, maybe there's ways some of these big guys could bring a young person on uh, with an enterprise, and then hopefully they'll get past the point of maybe you don't have to be related to the person that inherits the rights to run the land. Uh, maybe you just got Johnny from town that does a good job, shows up to work every day, and maybe he's not an owner, but maybe he's has first right of refusal for lifetime lease or something like that. That's what I'd love to see.
We'll get a little big picture here real quick. Do you think with just I mean, because the current political climate, the current economic climate, um, do you think agriculture in 20 years looks like it does right now? Just as far as what
I
we're
don't think
growing
it,
on the landscapes?
yeah, I don't think it can. On the big scale, it's pretty easy to get depressed or disappointed when you look at we were talking about before we hit record, we were talking about subsidies and all this and that. And uh if some of those go away, uh do we plant as many acres of row crops? I don't
Right.
want to knock any one of them. They all have purpose. Dr. Beck, in his keynote at conference this year talked about everything that we grow, we export, right? So then
Hmm.
we have to import more nutrients to grow that again. So we're at this humongous trade deficit. It's not sustainable.
Hmm.
Like, uh, so we got to change, but usually we don't change until we're forced to, right?
Hmm.
Especially men, year one, like me, that it's a lot easier when it's the only choice that you have to change versus, okay, I can keep doing what I'm comfortable with. I don't have to.
Well, and I mean, look at current farm economy right now. Um, never, not a lot of positivity out there in the grain community as far as profitability goes. So, I mean,
Well, like when you go look, so when I run a crop budget on like my grazing Milo or standing cover crops, whatever I'm growing, I'll go pull up K-State has a good website, agmanager.info. They've got crop budgets on there, and you can go through and put your own numbers in if you want, or you can look at what they give for the Southwest area. They all usually show a negative income, right? So why would you be planting a crop that you knew you were going to lose money on?
hmm.
And I'm like, with our cattle, I figure I save $50 an acre without harvesting. By the time it's going to be in the 30s to cut it,
Yep.
I don't have the money to pay that, so I'm going to borrow money. So I'm going to pay interest, and I'm a small guy, so they're going to get there late. I'm going to lose some test weight or yield that I'm gonna, I have a $50 swing, so I'm like, okay, on our worst Milo this year, we probably made $5 or $6 an acre, and then our best Milo, we might make $75 an acre when you
Hmm.
figure, a fair cost of gain or fair cost per day grazing.
Right.
Um, when you own the cattle and you own the crop, you can make your numbers whatever you want them to be. So be fair with yourself.
Right. Right.
So
Yep.
hopefully we get more of that. Like I
Yeah.
said, I want more young people. Want more people on the farm.
Yeah.
I remember all the people in our little town here, and they're not here anymore because there's no jobs. Land, the few guys get bigger, which that's fine. A huge enterprise uh, around here would be if somebody wanted to graze sheep and goats custom.
Hmm. Well, I can just tell
But
you,
what
there's areas where I go to go pull soil samples, and it just blows my mind the amount of old homesteads. Like, I mean, probably been abandoned since I don't know 80s or 90s. I mean, there's been days where I'll go on a field and I'll go up to be on six abandoned homesteads in a day that are all being farmed by the same person now, and it's like, yep, at one point this was owned and they probably operated a couple hundred acres, maybe 1,000 acres, and they've all just slowly been whittled out over the last 4 decades, 5 decades. So,
Right. And that's like it came up this week about land changing hands to these hunters, the
mhm,
recreational users. I won't just call them hunters, the recreational users, that recreation value has exceeded the agriculture value. And
yeah,
that's crazy that, the farm suicide crisis, we got farmers killing themselves over land. And then we got guys that got so much money that they can just buy it and sell it, trade it,
yeah,
like a cow trader. The more
yeah,
times they sell it, the more money they make. That, man, that breaks my heart that we had several restaurants in town when I grew up. We had a butcher. I don't think it ever ran in my lifetime, but we had a blacksmith here in town that it ran not too long before me. There was, a welding shop deal in there,
hmm,
but all these little towns used to have everything and people, and now you got to drive an hour
yeah,
to get anything,
yeah,
which
yep.
doesn't bode well for small communities.
So the future either looks bright or it looks bleak, but it probably won't be the same.
Yeah, no, 50-50 option either way, right?
Yeah, yep, yep. Well, is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to share today
I
off the top
think
of your head?
my only advice, yeah, it's like my only advice is, and I didn't do this, you need to focus on continuing education in agriculture. If you're not going to some type of like no-till on the plains or CCTA or big soil health event, something that aligns with your context and your goals, how are you going to get any better? How are you going to learn, upgraded uh, production management tips or technologies? How get uncomfortable and go do something. It's too easy to get lackadaisical, and then you start losing equity in your operation that you don't even see go away because you're not writing a check for it. And whether it's your generation or the next one, somebody has to write that check.
Well, where can people find you? I know you're on social media. Where can they find you
I still call it Twitter. I'm on Twitter. That I
at?
post most of my crazy stuff on Twitter. Yeah, or we've got a farm page. I think it's A&M Farms. Um, yeah, or just honestly, the easiest way to get me is hit me up at the no-till email. That's the easiest one to remember.
There
I
you
get
go.
people that email me there. Yep, yep,
Yep, there you go. Yep. No till on the planes email, correct?
yep.
So, well, guys, like I said, a little bit different conversation. We talked a little bit more about I don't know, a little smaller picture, I guess. But Aaron, like I said, Aaron's a pretty good friend these days, and talk to him probably way more, bug him way more than I should probably, waste way too much of his time. But it's always good to
Yeah.
have someone to talk and shoot the breeze with and cuss and discuss and just kind of give each other feedback. So definitely appreciate him joining us today. If you, as always, guys, hit that like button, leave a question, leave a comment, and yeah, share this if you thought it was worthwhile. So we will sign off with that. So thanks, Aaron.
Yep.